The mining facility on Kepler 7b had been silent for 3 days when Commander Lisa Stone received the emergency beacon through her neural implant. The signal came through garbled and weak, cutting through the electromagnetic interference that plagued this sector of space like a knife through static. Her fingers moved across the holographic controls of the reconnaissance vessel horizon as she adjusted their trajectory toward the distant mining world. "Something's not right about this," muttered her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ben Cross, as he studied the sensor readings from his station. The man had 20 years of experience in deep space operations, and his instincts had kept them alive through more dangerous situations than Lisa cared to remember. "The power signatures don't match any known equipment failure patterns." Lisa nodded as she watched the data streams flowing across her personal display. 3 mining colonies in the past month had gone dark without explanation, their automated systems simply stopping mid-operation as if someone had flipped a switch. The colonial administration had initially blamed equipment failures or solar storms, but the pattern was becoming too consistent to ignore. "Run a deep scan of the system perimeter," she ordered, her voice carrying the authority that came from years of commanding deep space missions. "I want to know if there's anything out there that doesn't belong." The Horizon's advanced sensor array reached out into the void, probing the darkness between planets with invisible fingers of energy. What they found made Lisa's blood run cold. Hidden in the shadow of Kepler 7b's largest moon, a massive structure hung in space like a predatory spider waiting in its web. The thing was easily 10 times larger than any human-built station, its hull composed of materials that their computers couldn't identify. "My God," whispered Dr. Rachel Kim, the ship's xenobiologist, as she analyzed the readings from her science station. "Those aren't human energy signatures. The power output alone suggests technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. But there's something else. I'm detecting biological components integrated into the structure itself." Lisa felt her heart rate increase as the implications became clear. This wasn't just an unknown alien vessel. It was something that had been actively concealing itself in human space, watching their colonies with purposes unknown. The thought that humanity might not be alone in the universe should have been cause for celebration, but the timing of this discovery filled her with dread instead of wonder. "Begin passive recording of all sensor data," she commanded, her training taking over despite the magnitude of what they were seeing. "Whatever this thing is, Earth needs to know about it. Ben, start plotting emergency jump coordinates back to the nearest fleet base." As if responding to their presence, the alien structure began to move. Its vast bulk shifted with surprising grace, turning to face their small reconnaissance ship with what could only be described as malevolent interest. Lights that had been dim suddenly blazed to life across its surface, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship's computer systems began reporting errors as unknown energy fields washed over them. "Commander, we're being scanned," Ben reported, his hands flying over his controls as he tried to maintain their stealth systems. "Whatever it's using is cutting through our hull like we're made of tissue paper. It's reading everything. Our computer cores, life support systems, even our biological signatures." Lisa watched in fascination and horror as smaller craft began launching from the alien structure. These vessels moved with fluid grace that defied human understanding of physics, their hulls rippling and shifting as they accelerated toward the horizon at impossible speeds. Each one was roughly the size of a human fighter, but they moved more like living creatures than mechanical constructs. "Dr. Kim, what are you reading from those approaching vessels?" Lisa asked, her finger hovering over the emergency jump activation. "Control. The readings are impossible," Rachel replied, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. "They're using some form of biological propulsion system. The hulls appear to be grown rather than built, and I'm detecting neural activity patterns that suggest they might actually be alive." The first of the alien craft reached them before Lisa could order the jump. Instead of attacking, it simply matched their course and speed, hovering alongside the horizon like a curious dolphin swimming next to a boat. Through the viewports, they could see its surface rippling with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some unknown heartbeat. "It's beautiful," Rachel whispered, pressed against the observation window. "Look at how the patterns change and flow. It's almost like it's trying to communicate." Lisa was about to respond when Her communications officer, Ensign Mark Webb, suddenly sat up straight at his station. "Commander, I'm receiving a transmission. It's not coming through our standard channels. Whatever they're using is interfacing directly with our computer systems." "Put it through the speakers," Lisa ordered, though every instinct screamed at her to jump away from this encounter immediately. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything they had ever heard. It spoke perfect English, but there was something fundamentally wrong with the cadence and tone. The words seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds, carrying emotions and concepts that human language had never been designed to express. "Greetings, humans of the vessel Horizon," the voice said, and Lisa felt a chill run down her spine at how casually it used their ship's name. "We have been observing your species for some time now. Your colonies provide excellent resources for our purposes. We compliment you on the quality of your biological materials." Lisa felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit. Her biological materials? She asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. "Indeed," the alien voice continued with what sounded like satisfaction. "Your people are remarkably suited to our needs. The neural patterns are particularly rich, and the emotional responses provide excellent flavor enhancement. We have already processed several thousand of your kind from the mining facilities. They served our purposes admirably before expiring." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and the sound of Rachel retching into a waste disposal unit. Lisa's hands clenched into fists as the horrible truth became clear. The missing colonist hadn't died in accidents or equipment failures. They had been harvested by these creatures like crops from a field. "You're slavers," she said, her voice hard as steel. "Such a crude term," the alien replied with something that might have been amusement. "We prefer to think of ourselves as farmers. Your species shows remarkable potential for cultivation. Soon we will expand our operations to include your homeworld. Earth, we believe you call it. The population density there will provide us with resources for centuries." Lisa felt rage building in her chest like a nuclear fire. These things had been treating humans like livestock, processing them for whatever twisted purposes drove their alien minds. But more than that, they were planning to do the same to Earth itself, to the billions of people who had no idea that predators were stalking them from the shadows. "Emergency jump! Now!" she screamed to Ben. The Horizon vanished into hyperspace just as the alien craft began to move with predatory intent. Behind them, the massive structure continued its silent vigil, waiting for the next group of human prey to stumble into its web. But now humanity knew the truth, and Lisa Stone was going to make sure that Earth was ready for what was coming. The universe was vast and filled with wonders, but it was also home to nightmares that defied human imagination. The slavers had made one critical mistake, though. They had revealed themselves to a species that had spent its entire history fighting against those who would enslave them. This time, they had picked the wrong prey. Admiral Henry Carter stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the surface of Luna Base, surrounded by holographic displays showing the deployment of humanity's most advanced military assets. The emergency session had been called within hours of Commander Stone's report reaching Earth, and every senior officer in the Solar Defense Fleet was now focused on a single, terrifying reality. Humanity was being hunted. "Gentlemen, ladies," the Admiral began, his weathered face reflecting decades of military service. "We are facing an enemy unlike anything in our historical experience. These beings have been harvesting our people for months, possibly years, and they consider us nothing more than biological resources to be processed." His words carried the weight of absolute authority, but underneath, those who knew him well could hear the carefully controlled fury. General Patricia Wong, head of Colonial Defense Forces, leaned forward in her chair as she studied the tactical displays. "Admiral, our analysis of Commander Stone's sensor data indicates that we're dealing with technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. Their ships appear to be partially biological, and their energy output suggests power sources we can't even theorize about yet. Which is exactly why we're not going to fight them conventionally," Admiral Carter replied, activating a new holographic display that showed the locations of known alien sightings across human space. "Dr. Morrison, what have your teams learned about their operational patterns?" Dr. James Morrison, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, stood and gestured to the display with practiced efficiency. The aliens, we're calling them harvesters for classification purposes, appear to operate in small fleets of 5 to 10 vessels. They target isolated colonies first, always beginning with mining operations or research stations where the population density is manageable. Once they've processed the inhabitants, they strip the facilities of useful materials and move on. Admiral Carter nodded grimly as he absorbed this information. How long before they're ready to move against Earth itself? Based on their current rate of expansion, we estimate 6 months before they have sufficient resources to mount an assault on the homeworld, Dr. Morrison replied. But Admiral, there's something else. Our analysis suggests they're not just randomly harvesting humans. They're specifically targeting individuals with certain genetic markers: scientists, engineers, military personnel, people with specialized knowledge and skills. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These creatures weren't just farming humans for biological material. They were selectively breeding them, like livestock, choosing the most valuable specimens to process first. It was a level of calculated cruelty that made even hardened military officers feel sick. "Sir," interrupted Colonel Michael Brooks from the Special Operations Division, "if I may suggest an alternative approach, instead of meeting them in open space combat where they hold every technological advantage, what if we turned their own methods against them?" Admiral Carter raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The harvesters hunt isolated targets because they assume humans are weak and scattered. But what if we gave them exactly what they expect, then used that against them? A trap disguised as helpless prey." Colonel Brooks activated his own tactical display, showing a detailed plan that had clearly been developed during the brief time since the threat was revealed. "We establish a fake colony on the edge of human space," he continued, his voice gaining confidence as he outlined the strategy. "Make it look like a valuable target. High population, advanced research facilities, minimal defenses. When they arrive to harvest the colonists, they'll find something they're not prepared for." General Wong studied the proposal with professional interest. "You're talking about using military personnel as bait. The psychological stress alone could break even our best soldiers." "Not if we do it right," Brooks replied. "We select volunteers from special operations units, people trained to operate under extreme stress. Give them civilian identities and let them live as colonists for weeks or months before the harvesters arrive. When the attack comes, they'll expect helpless farmers and researchers. Instead, they'll face soldiers who know exactly what they're dealing with." Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. "Colonel, there's something else to consider. The harvesters use some form of biological scanning technology to assess their targets. If we're going to fool them, our people will need to actually believe they're civilians until the moment of activation. Any military conditioning or combat implants will show up on their scans. Temporary memory suppression," suggested Dr. Sarah Phillips from the Psychological Warfare Division. "We can use localized neural dampening to suppress combat training and military knowledge. The soldiers will genuinely believe they're colonists until a specific activation signal restores their true memories and abilities. It's risky, but it would make the deception absolutely convincing." Admiral Carter considered this proposal with the calculating mind that had made him one of humanity's most effective military leaders. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and completely insane. It was also exactly the kind of thinking that might catch an enemy off guard who had been successfully hunting humans for months. "How many volunteers would we need?" he asked. 200, Brooks replied without hesitation. "Enough to staff a convincing colony, but small enough that each person can be carefully selected and prepared. We set up the colony on Proxima 3, establish it as a research station studying exotic materials. Make it look valuable enough that the harvesters can't resist. And when they arrive, we spring the trap," Brooks said with grim satisfaction. 200 of humanity's best special operations soldiers armed with our most advanced weapons, fighting an enemy that thinks they're harvesting helpless civilians. But more importantly, we capture their technology. Every piece of equipment we can get our hands on gets shipped back to Earth for analysis." Admiral Carter stood and walked to the main display, studying the tactical projections with the eye of a man who had spent his life preparing for exactly this kind of impossible situation. The plan was risky beyond measure, but it had one crucial advantage. It was utterly unexpected. The harvesters had been hunting humans for months, possibly years, and in all that time they had never faced organized resistance. "Dr. Phillips, how long do you need to prepare the memory suppression protocols?" he asked. 2 weeks for initial testing, another month for full implementation," she replied. "But Admiral, once we activate the suppression, there will be no way to communicate with our people until the activation signal is sent. They'll be completely on their own." "Colonel Brooks, can your people handle that level of isolation?" "Sir, these are soldiers who have operated behind enemy lines for months at a time. Living as colonists for a few months will be a vacation compared to some of their previous assignments." Brooks paused, then added more seriously, "But, Admiral, there's no guarantee this will work. If the harvesters detect the deception, our people will be captured and processed just like any other humans." Admiral Carter turned back to face the assembled officers, his expression hard as granite. "Ladies and gentlemen, 6 months from now, these creatures plan to begin harvesting Earth itself. 8 billion human beings are counting on us to find a way to stop them. Colonel Brooks, you have authorization to begin recruiting volunteers for Operation Mousetrap." The room buzzed with activity as officers began coordinating the most desperate gamble in human history. They were going to use their own people as bait, trusting that human ingenuity and determination would be enough to overcome technology centuries beyond their understanding. In the depths of space, the harvesters continued their methodical expansion through human territory, confident in their superiority and completely unaware that their prey was about to become the predator. The hunt was about to begin, but this time, humanity would be setting the trap. The morning alarm echoed through the research station on Proxima 3 as Dr. Emily Watson rolled out of her narrow bunk and prepared for another day of studying crystalline formations in the planet's crust. She had been working at the remote facility for 3 months now, and the isolation was starting to wear on everyone's nerves. The small community of 200 researchers, miners, and support staff had developed the kind of close-knit relationships that only formed when people were completely dependent on each other for survival. "Morning, Emily," called out Marcus Chen, the station's chief geologist, as she entered the cafeteria for breakfast. "Any interesting dreams about mineral compositions last night?" Emily laughed as she poured herself a cup of synthetic coffee. "Actually, I dreamed I was back on Earth, teaching undergraduate students who actually cared about xenogeology. Can you imagine such a fantasy?" The conversation around the breakfast table was typical of any isolated research community. Complaints about the food, speculation about when the next supply ship would arrive, and endless discussion of their various scientific projects. Nobody mentioned military tactics or combat training because none of them remembered having any. The memory suppression had been so complete that these 200 volunteers genuinely believed they were exactly what they appeared to be. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's biologist, looked up from her datapad with excitement. "Emily, you need to see these readings from the deep core samples. The mineral structures are unlike anything in our databases. If my analysis is correct, these formations could revolutionize our understanding of planetary formation." "That's wonderful," Emily replied, though part of her mind felt strangely uncomfortable with the news. Something about Sarah's discovery triggered a vague sense of unease that she couldn't explain. "Have you transmitted your findings to Earth yet?" "I was planning to include them in today's regular communication burst," Sarah said. "The Colonial Administration will want to see this data as soon as possible." Unknown to the researchers there, regular communications were being monitored by sensors hidden throughout the system. The harvesters had been watching the growing settlement on Proxima 3 for weeks, analyzing the population and assessing their potential value. The recent discovery of exotic minerals had elevated the station from a minor target to a priority harvest operation. In the depths of space, the harvester fleet moved toward the Proxima system with predatory patience. 5 massive bioships drifted through the void like sleeping leviathans, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and navigation systems. Within their organic corridors, creatures that defied human understanding prepared for another routine harvesting operation. The harvester that humans had designated as the fleet commander existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. its consciousness flowing through the bioship's neural networks like electricity through circuits. To it, the approaching colony represented nothing more than a rich source of biological material and useful knowledge. The humans had been conveniently isolated on a remote world, far from any possible assistance. Initiate harvest approach vector, the commander communicated to its subordinates through bioelectric pulses. Target assessment indicates high-value specimens with specialized knowledge. Priority extraction protocols will be implemented. Back. On Proxima 3, the research station's automated defense sensors detected the approaching fleet while most of the colonists were sleeping. Dr. Watson, who had drawn the night shift monitoring duty, stared at her displays in confusion and growing fear. 5 massive contacts were approaching from the outer system, moving at speeds that no human vessel could match. "Marcus," she called to the chief geologist, shaking him awake in his quarters. "You need to see this. There are ships approaching, but they're not broadcasting any identification codes." Marcus stumbled to the control room, still half asleep, and studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Emily, those aren't human ships. The power signatures are completely wrong, and look at those hull configurations. They're organic somehow." The two scientists stared at each other as the terrible realization began to dawn. Stories had been circulating through the colonies about missing settlements and unexplained disappearances. Most people had dismissed them as rumors or equipment failures, but now they were faced with evidence that something genuinely alien was approaching their isolated station. "We need to wake everyone," Emily said, her hands shaking as she activated the station's general alarm. "If these are hostile, we need to prepare for evacuation." The alarm echoed through the facility, bringing confused and frightened researchers stumbling from their quarters. But as they gathered in the main assembly area, something strange began to happen. Dr. Phillips's memory suppression protocols had included a specific trigger designed to activate when the colonists faced genuine mortal danger. Captain Mike Rodriguez was the first to remember. The suppressed memories flooded back like a dam bursting. 20 years of military service, advanced combat training, expertise in alien technology. He wasn't a mining engineer named Marcus Chen. He was a special operations officer who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. Around the assembly area, 200 fake colonists suddenly became 200 of humanity's most elite soldiers. Emily Watson remembered her true identity as Captain Emily Watson, expert in xenobiology and alien technology. Sarah Kim's consciousness flooded with tactical knowledge and combat experience as she recalled her real name, Major Sarah Kim, specialist in unconventional warfare. "All right, people," Captain Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying the authority of command. "You all know why we're here. The memory suppression has been lifted, which means the harvesters have taken the bait. Activation protocol is now in effect." The transformation was remarkable. Confused and frightened researchers became hardened military professionals in the space of minutes. Hidden weapons caches were opened, revealing advanced human technology designed specifically for this mission. The seemingly helpless research station revealed itself to be a fortress manned by some of the most dangerous humans alive. "Dr. Watson," Rodriguez called to the xenobiologist, "what's our assessment of the approaching fleet?" Emily studied the sensor readings with new understanding, her suppressed knowledge of alien technology flooding back. 5 bioships, typical harvester configuration. They're following standard approach patterns for a harvesting operation. Sir, they have no idea what they're flying into. Major Kim, what's the status of our special weapons? Sarah Kim checked her tactical displays with professional efficiency. "All systems green, Captain. The quantum disruptors are online, and the neural feedback weapons are charged and ready. If these things use biological components like our intelligence suggests, they're about to get a very unpleasant surprise." Captain Rodriguez allowed himself a grim smile as he watched the harvester fleet approach their trap. For months, these creatures had been hunting humans with impunity, treating them like livestock to be processed and consumed. They had grown confident in their superiority, never imagining that their prey might fight back. "All units, prepare for combat," he announced over the station's communication system. "Remember, our primary objective is to capture their technology for analysis. Secondary objective is to send a message that humanity is no longer helpless prey." These things want to harvest us. Let's show them what human beings do to predators. The eye. Research station's external appearance remained unchanged, but beneath the surface, 200 of Earth's finest soldiers prepared for a battle that would determine whether humanity remained prey or became the hunter. The harvesters were about to learn that they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the species. They were trying to farm. In the cold vacuum of space, the bioships continued their approach, completely unaware that their routine harvesting operation was about to become a nightmare. The trap was set, the bait was taken, and humanity was ready to bare its teeth. The first harvester bioship descended through Proxima 3's atmosphere like a living nightmare, its organic hull rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with some alien heartbeat. Captain Rodriguez watched from the command center as the massive vessel settled onto the planet's surface just outside the research station, its landing struts extending like the legs of a cosmic spider. "They're following standard harvesting protocols," whispered Major Kim as she monitored the alien vessel's activities. "Preliminary scans, atmospheric adaptation, then deployment of capture teams. They think this is going to be just another routine operation." Through the station's reinforced windows, the soldiers disguised as colonists could see smaller craft detaching from the main bioship. These collection vessels moved with fluid grace as they spread out around the facility, positioning themselves to prevent any escape attempts. Each one carried harvesting equipment designed to process living humans into whatever twisted resources the aliens required. "Contact in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Colonel David Park from the tactical station. "All teams, remember your training. Let them get close enough to trigger the neural feedback systems, then hit them with everything we've got, the me." First wave of harvester ground forces emerged from their organic transports, and the humans got their first close look at the creatures that had been systematically hunting their species. They were tall and graceful, with multiple limbs that ended in complex manipulator appendages. Their bodies seemed to shift between solid and liquid states, and their faces were smooth surfaces that reflected their surroundings like polished mirrors. "Fascinating," Emily muttered, her scientific curiosity warring with her military training. "They're using some form of controlled molecular cohesion to adapt their physical structure to different environments. No wonder our conventional weapons have been ineffective against them." The harvester ground commander approached the station's main entrance, its form rippling as it adjusted to the local gravity and atmospheric conditions. When it spoke, its voice bypassed their ears entirely and spoke directly to their minds, carrying emotions and concepts that human language couldn't express. "Humans of Research Facility Designation Proxima 3, the creature announced with casual arrogance. "You will submit to harvesting procedures immediately. Resistance will result in damage to your biological components and reduced processing efficiency. Compliance will ensure minimal discomfort during extraction." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, playing his role as the terrified facility commander perfectly. "Please, we're just scientists. We don't have anything valuable. Our research is all theoretical. Your neural patterns indicate specialized knowledge in multiple scientific disciplines," the harvester replied, its mirror-smooth face reflecting Rodriguez's apparent fear. "Such specimens provide excellent resources for our cognitive enhancement programs. You should consider this an honor. Your consciousness will contribute to the expansion of harvester knowledge." "Sir," Major Kim whispered through their concealed communication system, "the bioships are maintaining standard formation. They're not expecting any resistance. All our systems are still reading as inactive on their sensors." Rodriguez nodded slightly, then returned his attention to the alien commander. "How long will the process take? Will we survive?" "Survival is irrelevant," the creature replied with what might have been amusement. "Your biological components will be preserved and integrated into our collective consciousness. Your individual existence will cease, but your knowledge will become part of something far greater than your primitive species could ever achieve." That was the signal Rodriguez had been waiting for. "Now!" he shouted, dropping his terrified act and revealing the cold professionalism of a career military officer. The research station exploded into action as 200 hidden soldiers revealed their true nature. Concealed weapon systems emerged from seemingly innocent equipment, and the harmless-looking colonists produced military hardware that the Harvester's sensors hadn't detected. The neural feedback weapons activated first, sending concentrated bursts of bioelectric energy designed to disrupt the aliens' organic control systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Harvester ground forces convulsed as their neural networks were overloaded by feedback that turned their own biological advantages against them. Their ability to shift between physical states became a liability as the quantum disruptors locked their molecular structure into solid configurations they couldn't escape. "Direct hit on the lead bioship," announced Lieutenant Park as he coordinated the station's hidden defense systems. "Their organic hull is showing massive neural disruption. Whatever they use for central nervous system control is going haywire." Captain Rodriguez watched with grim satisfaction as the nearest Harvester tried desperately to maintain its form while electrical feedback cascaded through its consciousness. "Dr. Watson, are you reading any biological data from their systems?" "Incredible," Emily replied as she analyzed the incoming sensor data. "Their entire technology base is built on controlled biological processes. They're not just using living components, they are living components. The ships, the weapons, even their individual bodies are all part of a single interconnected organism. Which means," Major Kim added with deadly understanding, "if we can introduce the right kind of virus into their system, we can bring down their entire fleet." The battle raged around the research station as human ingenuity clashed with alien technology. The Harvesters had superior firepower and centuries of technological advancement, but they had never faced an enemy that understood their weaknesses. Every biological system had vulnerabilities, and humans had spent millennia learning to exploit biological weaknesses. "Upload Package Alpha to their command ship," Rodriguez ordered as he watched his soldiers systematically destroy the Harvester ground forces. "Let's see how they handle a computer virus designed specifically for organic neural networks." Dr. Emily Watson had spent months preparing for this moment. Hidden within her scientific equipment was a quantum computer loaded with the most sophisticated biological warfare virus ever created by human science. But this virus wasn't designed to attack living tissue. It targeted the bioelectric patterns that the Harvesters used for consciousness and control, establishing connection to their primary neural network, she announced as her equipment interfaced with the damaged bioship systems. "The virus is adapting to their biological protocols. Uploading now." The effect spread through the Harvester fleet like wildfire. The virus reproduced itself within their organic computer systems, turning their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. Bioships that had been gracefully maneuvering through space began to convulse and lose altitude as their neural networks crashed under the assault of hostile code. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Park as he watched the enemy fleet tear itself apart. "They're completely helpless. Their ships are literally dying." Captain Rodriguez felt no sympathy for the creatures that had been systematically harvesting his species like livestock. "Major Kim, prepare capture teams. I want prisoners and technology samples. These things are going to tell us everything about their operations." The surviving Harvesters on the ground had lost all coordination as their command structure collapsed. Without the guiding intelligence of their bioships, they reverted to basic survival instincts, trying desperately to escape the humans who had turned from prey to predator in the space of minutes. "Captain," Emily called from her position at the science station, "I'm detecting massive data streams from the damaged ships. They're trying to transmit information about our capabilities to other Harvester fleets." "Jam all communications," Rodriguez ordered. "Nothing gets out of this system. As far as the rest of their species is concerned, this fleet just disappeared." The Battle of Proxima 3 lasted less than 2 hours, but its implications would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. 5 Harvester bioships lay broken on the planet's surface, their organic hulls slowly dying as human soldiers secured the wreckage for analysis. The creatures that had hunted humanity with impunity for months had been completely destroyed by a species they had considered primitive prey. Captain Rodriguez stood among the wreckage of the alien fleet, watching his teams catalog every piece of technology they could recover. The Harvesters had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that biological superiority automatically meant victory. They had never imagined that humans might turn their own biological nature against them. "Sir," Major Kim reported as she supervised the prisoner interrogations, "we've extracted the location of their home systems from the survivors. The Harvester territories span dozens of star systems, but they're all connected through the same biological network we just infected." Rodriguez smiled grimly as he realized the full implications of their victory. The virus they had created wasn't just a weapon. It was a key that could unlock the entire Harvester civilization. These creatures had spent centuries building an empire based on biological supremacy, never realizing that their interconnected nature made them vulnerable to a single coordinated attack. "Prepare a data burst to Earth," he commanded. "Include everything we've learned about Harvester technology and biology. It's time to take this war to their home territories." The hunters were about to become the hunted, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happened to species that tried to enslave them. 6 months after the victory at Proxima 3, the combined fleets of Earth's Colonial Defense Force emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Harvester home system. Their ships, bristling with weapons technology reverse-engineered from captured alien bioships, Admiral Henry Carter stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching as his sensors revealed the scope of the enemy civilization they had come to destroy. "Magnificent and horrifying," whispered Commander Stone as she studied the tactical displays. The Harvester home system was a twisted masterpiece of biological engineering, with massive living structures that spanned entire planets and spaceborne organisms the size of moons. Everything pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns they had learned to recognize as the aliens' communication network. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Watson from the Science Division, "we're detecting over 3 million Harvester bioships throughout the system. But sir, there's something strange about their formations. They're not responding to our presence the way we expected." Admiral Carter frowned as he analyzed the sensor data. The Harvester fleet should have been moving to intercept them by now, but instead, the bioships were maintaining defensive positions around their primary worlds. "Explain, Captain." "Sir, I think our virus from Proxima 3 was more effective than we realized. The Harvesters use an interconnected biological network for all their technology and communication. When we infected their fleet, we may have introduced the virus into their entire civilization." The implications were staggering. Dr. Watson pulled up holographic displays showing the spread of the human-designed virus through the Harvester network. Over the past 6 months, like a biological plague, it had spread from ship to ship, planet to planet, corrupting their organic technology and turning their greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. "The virus has evolved," she continued with growing excitement. "It's adapted to their biological systems and spread beyond anything we originally designed. Sir, I don't think they can coordinate their defenses anymore. The neural networks that control their entire civilization are breaking down." General Patricia Wong stepped forward from her position at the tactical station, her expression hard as granite. "Admiral, we have confirmation from our advanced scouts. 17 Harvester colony worlds have gone dark in the past month. Their bioships are drifting powerless through space, and their planetary defense networks are failing systematically." Admiral Carter felt a mixture of satisfaction and unease as he absorbed this information. The human virus had exceeded all expectations, but the scope of its effect was almost beyond comprehension. An entire galactic civilization was collapsing because humanity had turned their own biology against them. "Sir," interrupted Commander Stone, her voice tight with urgency, "we're receiving a transmission from the Harvester homeworld. It's coming through on multiple frequencies simultaneously." "Put it through," Admiral Carter ordered. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything they had heard from previous Harvester communications. Instead of the arrogant confidence they had grown accustomed to, this transmission carried desperation and something that might have been fear. "Humans of the approaching fleet," the alien voice pleaded, its mental touch weak and fragmented. "We request immediate cessation of hostilities. The biological weapon you have introduced into our systems is causing catastrophic damage to our civilization. We are prepared to discuss terms for our surrender." Admiral Carter exchanged glances with his senior officers. In all their planning for this assault, they had never considered the possibility that the harvesters might surrender. These creatures had spent centuries treating other species as resources to be harvested, showing no mercy to the billions of beings they had processed for their own purposes. "Admiral," Dr. Watson said quietly, "the virus is continuing to spread through their network. At this rate, their entire biological infrastructure will collapse within weeks. We're not just defeating them, we're potentially causing the extinction of their entire species." The bridge fell silent as the weight of this realization sank in. They had come here to stop the harvesters from enslaving humanity, but their weapon had proven so effective that it might eliminate the aliens entirely. The question now was whether humanity should show mercy to creatures that had shown none to their victims. "General Wang," Admiral Carter said after a long pause, "what's the status of our rescue operations in the outer systems?" "We've located and freed over 200,000 human prisoners from harvester processing facilities," she replied. "But Admiral, the psychological damage is severe. These people were being systematically harvested for their consciousness and biological components. Many of them may never fully recover." Admiral Carter nodded grimly. The testimonies from the rescued prisoners had painted a picture of horror that would haunt human nightmares for generations. The harvesters had treated humans like livestock, processing them alive to extract whatever resources they required. Children had been separated from parents, families torn apart, entire communities dissolved into biological components. "Sir," Commander Stone added, "our intelligence teams have also uncovered evidence of the harvesters' expansion plans. They were preparing to move against Earth within the next year. The assault on our homeworld would have involved over 50,000 bioships and processing equipment designed to harvest the entire human population." The Admiral felt his jaw clench as he imagined the horror that would have befallen Earth if the harvesters had been allowed to continue their expansion. 8 billion human beings would have been processed like cattle, their consciousness dissolved and their biological components distributed throughout the alien empire. "Admiral," the harvester transmission continued, its mental voice growing weaker, "we acknowledge our errors in judgment regarding your species. We offer complete compensation for damages inflicted and full withdrawal from all territories containing human populations. Please, you must halt the spread of your biological weapon before it destroys us entirely." Captain Rodriguez, who had been brought aboard as an expert on harvester technology, stepped forward. "Sir, I've been analyzing their bioship formations. They're trying to evacuate their core worlds, but the virus has infected their navigation systems. Most of their ships can't maintain course for more than a few hours before their organic computers crash." "They're trapped," Dr. Watson added with scientific fascination. "The same biological network that made them so powerful has become a prison. Every attempt to flee just spreads the virus to new locations." Admiral Carter stared at the holographic display showing the dying harvester civilization. The virus was beautiful in its elegant simplicity, a piece of human ingenuity that had turned the aliens' greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. The interconnected biological network that had allowed them to coordinate across star systems was now the pathway for their destruction. "Sir," General Wang said quietly, "we need to make a decision. Do we accept their surrender and try to contain the virus, or do we let it run its course and eliminate the harvester threat permanently?" The Admiral considered the options carefully. The harvesters had shown no mercy to the countless species they had enslaved and processed over the centuries. Their request for mercy came only now, when they were facing extinction themselves. But humanity had always prided itself on being better than its enemies. "Open a channel to the harvester homeworld," he commanded. The transmission connected, revealing a being that looked nothing like the confident creatures they had encountered before. This harvester was clearly dying, its form barely maintaining cohesion as the virus ate away at its biological systems. "I am Admiral Henry Carter of the Earth Colonial Defense Force," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of humanity's military might. "You request mercy from a species you plan to harvest like cattle. You ask for compassion from people whose children you stole and processed for resources." The aliens' response was weak and fragmented. "We Acknowledge our failures. We underestimated your species. Please, our entire civilization is dying. Surely you do not wish to become the exterminators we were. Admiral Carter felt the weight of history on his shoulders. This decision would define humanity's place in the galaxy and determine what kind of species they would become. They could choose the path of mercy and try to save their enemies, or they could allow the harvesters to face the same fate they had planned for countless other worlds. You made one critical error, the Admiral replied, his voice cold as space itself. You assumed that humanity would remain weak and divided. You never imagined that your prey might become the predator. The virus you're dying from isn't just a weapon, it's a lesson. It teaches the galaxy that some species should never be underestimated. But, he continued, and hope flickered in the alien's failing consciousness, humanity chooses to be better than its enemies. We will provide you with a modified version of the virus that will halt its spread. Your civilization will survive, but under conditions that ensure you never threaten another species again. The Harvester homeworld fell silent except for the dying whispers of 1 billion organic computers crashing under the weight of human ingenuity. The creatures that had spent centuries hunting other species now faced a choice between extinction and accepting humanity's terms for survival. In the end, the slavers had no chance to escape. They had revealed themselves to a species that refused to be harvested, and now they would learn to live in a galaxy where humans were no longer prey. The hunters had become the hunted, and the universe would never be the same.